Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm converting my channel to be more photography based. I know it's been kind of random and it's been having gaming content, but now it's gonna be photography based, so whatever. Now we're gonna get into how to take better photos. So first thing I wanna get off the table is that getting better gear is not gonna make your photos better. And that goes for camera body and lenses. If you think about an artist who's really good at painting and uses cheap paintbrushes, he can still get nice paintings with the cheap paintbrushes, but he can get more out of his paintings if he uses more expensive paintbrushes that can allow for more detail. Same thing with somebody who plays piano. You can have an amazing piano player. They could be playing on a cheap digital piano. You give them a concert grand, they're gonna sound even better because of the gear they're using. That's the same thing for photography. If you take a seasoned vet, somebody's really good at taking photos, they can get more out of their photography with better gear. But you have an entry-level painter and they don't know how to paint. You give them the most expensive brushes in the world, they're still not going to be able to paint. That's the same thing for an amateur or a hobbyist or a beginner. I can give you, the most expensive cameras in the world, but your photos aren't going to come out good and not going to represent the gear you're using because you're just starting off and you don't have that eye for photography yet. You don't know how to compose, you don't know how to edit. I mean, these things are going to come with time, but you don't know how to do these things yet. So you just need to take it slow. And that where we lead into our first point, which is practice and time. Practice and time is going to help you become a better photographer. Because think about it like this. On a base level, when you start off with photography, 9 times out of 10, you're taking photos with your cell phone. Now you're switching to digital photography. Now you're going to see a difference in image quality. So going from the cell phone to the digital camera, you're going to think, wow, these photos are great. But that's just on the base level. You're still starting off, or you're still a hobbyist. You're still getting used to digital photography. I mean, that goes along the same lines as you in high school when you're a freshman. Guess what? You dressed a certain way and you thought, okay, this looks good. I like my style. But fast forward to your senior year or your first year of college and you look back to your freshman year, you'll look back and you're like, wow, I can't believe what I was wearing because, wow, that just wasn't it. It's going to be the same thing with the photography. When you first start off, you're not going to have the same eye. You're not going to have the same idea of good until you had that practice and time in. And then you can look back and see those changes and you can say, okay, I'm developing, I'm getting good. But that comes with practice and time. So practice and time are going to be your best friend when it comes to starting off and getting better with your photography. It sounds very elementary and very cliche, but they're so important. I mean, even with time with me and my editing, sometimes I'll edit something, go to sleep, look back, and I'm like, wow, I don't actually like that. Let me go ahead and change it. That was a mistake. Let me change it. So it's important for everybody, seasoned vets and beginners. Practice and time are going to be your best friend, especially as far as capturing better photos. My next tip as far as getting better photos is going to be working on your composition. So that's going to be kind of one of the most important things with your photos and getting better photos is going to be composing them when you're out in the field. It can be kind of a hard thing to learn. Sometimes I can struggle with certain subjects as far as composition, but guess what? All you got to do is just practice and just take different photos of the same subject and change how it looks in the frame. Hey, maybe go for a close up, maybe step away, get some distance from your subject. Maybe shoot on the left side of the frame, maybe shoot on the right side of the frame. Just take a whole bunch of photos in different angles and, different views. So that way you can go home, put on the computer and see what you have. That's another important thing too. Do not delete your photos out in the field. Just don't do it. Unless it's just completely out of focus and unusable, that's different. But you just never know what you have until you get home and edit. I'm going to get into that in a second. But when you're out in the field, you're looking on a small screen, you may think, oh, this photo isn't good, let me just delete it. But I've had some unorthodox photos that I didn't think looked good and they came out amazing. For example, this flamingo photo right here. Look at the raw photo. It doesn't look that good. But guess what? You edit it and it looks amazing. So, hey, guess what? Don't delete any photos when you're out in the field. Just take them home with you and then delete them once they get onto the computer. Don't delete them unless for some reason your memory card is just full. I think you should get, the highest capacity memory cards you can afford, just so that way you can just have more time to shoot. If anything, I think your battery should die faster than you run out of memory unless you're taking a whole bunch of video. But okay, I digress. However, play around with your composition to get more of your photography. Just practice with it. Practice and practice and practice. But compose your photo in different ways so that way you can go home, see what you have, and play around in your photo editing software and get the most out of your photography. My next point, understanding which different camera modes to use. You're going to have aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual modes as your main modes. There's some photographers who like to shoot on auto, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, these cameras are so smart nowadays. You can put it on auto. I mean, they come with artificial intelligence now and deep learning. Put in auto and have fun and take your photos, and you'll get good photos, right? But they could probably come out a little bit better if you use manual modes and take control for yourself. So aperture priority, that's going to be for controlling your depth of field. If you want to narrow depth of field, you want to widen your aperture, stop down to 1.8, 2.8, maybe even f4, so you can have, smaller depth of field. If you're doing landscapes, you might want to shoot at f8, f9, f10, so you can have more in focus. If you want to have more bokeh, widen your aperture. These are different things to think about when it comes to your photography. You have to learn these out in the field, so that way you can kind of get an idea of which modes to use when. We're going to talk about shutter priority. I'm going to touch on it a little bit. Shutter priority is when you want to control your shutter speed of your camera. So guess what? If I'm shooting something that's slow moving, maybe a person running, I might shoot 1/400. They're really fast, maybe 1/500. If I'm shooting a hummingbird in flight, I might shoot 1/6400, because your wings are so fast and you want to freeze that motion. You want to lower your shutter speed so that way you can capture that motion. But at the same time, you don't always want to shoot as low as possible, because you still want to allow as much light into your camera so you don't introduce too much noise. So it's like when you're out in the field, you want to find that balance of having the fastest shutter for the situation, but having the slowest shutter for your ISO, so your images don't come out noisy. You can denoise your photos and stuff with the software, but 9 out of 10, they can cause too much smoothing and make the photos look worse than what they are. You want to keep your noise as low as possible in these situations. So yeah, go ahead and take a photo, 1 or 2 or 3 or 10, look at your camera and say to yourself, how does this look? If it looks good, keep your setting. If it's not enough sharpness, go ahead and lower your shutter speed down a little bit. That way you can get your photos sharper. And the next point I want to mention is to master your editing. You don't have to get a specific style for all your photos. Personally, I like to curate my editing based on what I'm shooting. So my photos will have different looks at certain times. Generally in one shoot, I like to keep the same editing style, but I may change it. It may be a little unorthodox, but that's what I like to do, and that's what I enjoy with my photography. So master your editing and find out what works best for you. Find a good software you like to use. Lightroom is popular. Capture One is a good one. There's a bunch of options out here. DxO, Photo Labs. Find your software, learn how to use it, and master your editing. And that's another thing that comes with practice and time. It sounds cliche, but that's just what it is. These things, getting good at photography doesn't happen overnight. It's just not going to happen like that. So just take your time with it. It's something you're supposed to enjoy and have fun with. And if you want to get better, you're going to need to practice in time. And that's with anything in life. It's going to be with your job. It's going to be with anything you're trying to learn, like everything. Practice in time, practice in time, practice in time. If it wasn't true, I wouldn't be saying it. I don't want to waste my time or your time. So just trust me on this. Just trust me. The next step to possibly enhance your photos is going to be getting a better lens. Getting a better lens isn't automatically going to make your photos inherently better just by changing your lens. But depending on what you're trying to achieve, your lens can in fact make your photos better. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing. If you're going to shoot wildlife, you maybe want to go for a lens that's at least 400 millimeters. 400 millimeters is a very nice focal range to have for wildlife. 500, 600, hey, even better in some cases. Maybe you want to do more landscape, so you need something wider angle. So maybe you want to go from maybe a 10 to 18 millimeter, or a 15 to 35, 16 to 35 millimeter lens. It just depends. Personally, I believe your lens should address a specific need you have in regards to your photography. So if you're shooting with let's say a kit lens and it's an 18 to 200 and you want something longer, yeah, maybe get a lens that goes up to 300 or 400. Or let's say you have a lens that's about a 55 to 300 and you want something wider, go ahead and get an 18 to 50. So that way now you can shoot on a wide range and on the long range. Those won't inherently make your photos better, but those can be the tools you need to get more out of the type of photography that you're doing. And the last part I want to talk about is getting a different camera body. Your camera body honestly isn't as important as your lens, I would say. Just to show you an example, just so you maybe believe me a little bit more, these are going to be photos taken with entry-level gear. These aren't going to be in any order. This first photo was taken by AJ Johnson. It's a fantastic photo. You see the sunflowers and the bird. The photo's a little unorthodox. The bird is backlit. The sunflowers are backlit. You can't really see, what type of bird it is. But, you got the nice foreground. Everything's focused in the foreground. And you got the nice midground with the sunflower field. And you got the nice background with a large field. And it looks like it leads to even maybe some mountains back there. I mean, it looks absolutely amazing. It's an extremely good photo, well edited. I mean, composed very well. I like this photo. Shout out to A. Johnson Photography. This next photo is going to be of this black rat snake. I think it's absolutely amazing too. Composed pretty well. I mean, you got the decrease in the saturation to kind of show like the coldness of the snakes. I mean, snakes, you know, they're cold-blooded. I mean, they can be very mysterious animals. I mean, they're very calculated, and I mean, they kind of have that, I don't know, that kind of coldness to them. So that decrease in saturation to kind of emphasize that, I think it works very well in the vignetting to kind of fit around with what's going on in the photo. I think it works absolutely amazing. I mean, shout out to Emery Photography. That was a great photo, and that was taken on a Rebel T7. And the first photo, I can't remember if I mentioned this, the first photo was taken on the Rebel T7. And this last photo, this Bengal Eagle Owl, was taken on a Canon 2000D with a Sigma 150 to 600 millimeter lens. And that is my all-time favorite, hands down, telephoto lens by far. I mean, it's absolutely sharp. I wish the autofocus worked good on the mirrorless systems. They don't, but whatever. I mean, I hope one day something comes out where they get an RF version and it can work on a Canon mirrorless. That would be amazing. Nevertheless, this photo is absolutely amazing, taken on entry-level gear and technically a cheap lens as well. I mean, that lens is amazing, but it is definitely a cheap wildlife lens in compared to the other pro options out there on the market. And this photo is absolutely amazing. You're getting all the sharpness, you're getting all the detail. I mean, you just can't beat this. I mean, like I said, this is taken with entry-level gear, and there's nothing wrong with that. So the bodies are less important. I feel like the bodies, if you want to upgrade your bodies, you should address certain issues as far as like security, as far as photo security. I mean, these cameras are not going to protect you from nothing. But if you're doing a wedding, something serious, and you want a car to fail on you and lose all your work, yeah, get a camera with dual SD card slots. Or if you're going into more video work and you want something with better video capabilities, go ahead and do that. If you think you need to crop in more and you want a higher megapixel camera, I mean, that's another thing to think about, right? So, I mean, there's a few reasons to think about upgrading, but like I said, there's only a few. I mean, the camera you have, if it shoots, hey, guess what? Use it. I mean, your lens is going to be more important in getting better photos, but sometimes that body, it can be important in certain aspects. If your autofocus is really bad, I mean, then if you're missing shots all the time, then yeah, I mean, that could be a user here at the same time. So, I mean, I just think that you yourself as a photographer should learn how to use the gear that you have to get better photos. 9 out of 10, your camera body is fine. You may need to get a different lens, but sometimes, most of the time, actually, you just need to get better at taking photos. I had to get better at taking photos, and I'm still learning to get better at taking photos every single day. I think I'm pretty solid, but I mean, I'm not going to say I'm the completely best in the world, but I do like my work, you know what I'm saying? So those are the things I think are more important in getting better photography. The practicing time, getting your composition right, getting a possible lens better, and worst case scenario, let's say, like I said, worst case scenario, getting a different body. But like I said, your body is not going to make you a better photographer. Your lens is not going to make you a better photographer. You need to practice and get the skill set to become a better photographer. I mean, I can shoot with a Canon T3i and get the same photos. It may be harder to get the same photos as I could with a newer mirrorless, but I promise you I can get the same photos with the Canon T3i. And one more point I forgot to mention in regards to camera lenses. Don't think that you need to get the most expensive lenses. I mean, if you're shooting mirrorless, don't think you need to always get mirrorless lenses. You can adapt the older lenses, the older DSLR lenses to your mirrorless. For example, in this photo, this car right here, it's a Porsche. I was at this kind of car event in my area. At the making of the video, this lens is 12 years old, and this photo looks absolutely amazing. So don't think you need to get the most expensive mirrorless options. I mean, I love that I can get deals on the older lenses, and there are very few people who want them nowadays for some reason. A lot of people are flocking to mirrorless just because. You're basically giving your money away to these companies with their good marketing. Don't get me wrong, the mirrorless lenses are better, but they're not so substantially better to me that it's worth that huge spike in price. I mean, come on, man. I mean, these lenses are costing $2,000-$3,000, and you can pick up a used DSLR lens for like $700. I mean, to me, it's pretty much a no-brainer when it comes to which lens I'm going to choose. But, you know, everybody's free to do what they want. I mean, at the end of the day, it's your money, do what you want. But I ain't gonna lie, it's a little bit crazy when I see somebody with a really expensive setup and then my photos look better than theirs, and you know, my setup is a lot cheaper, and it's like, okay, I mean, just saying. I mean, I'm a humble person, but you know, anyways. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want me to go more in depth about certain subjects, please let me know. You know, I'm still trying to work out the kinks and get used to this. And as far as making content that's photography focused, you know, I'm sorry things have been so shaky with the channel. Now it's just gonna be photography focused, and that's just what it's gonna be, just photography. That's it. Later on, I may venture into other avenues, but that's gonna be on a separate channel. So let me know if you want to see anything specific, or you want to go in depth about anything specific. Let me know in the comments. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think about the video. I hope to see you on the next one. Take care and happy photo taking.